Hello and welcome to Life with Francie podcast, a place where we will find all kinds of conversation like mental health, self-love, self-care, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a place where we support one another in business and personal life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get the show started. On today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Kareen Aristide. Oh, I forgot to ask her last name. I know I said
Aristide. That's all good. It's all
Aristide.
good, girl. Aristide. Yes.
Oh my gosh, a passionate woman who helps her client, especially parentpreneurs. I never heard of that one, so I can't wait to talk more about that. Realize
Yes.
their full potential professionally, emotionally, and spiritually. She combines nearly 25 of professional and entrepreneur experience, having impacted hundreds of lives around the world, as long as a pastor, speaker, trainer, coach, and author. Her current expertise is on personal and professional development with the focus on mental health. She's just amazing, so I just can't wait to get this conversation started. Welcome to the show and tell us what is life with Kareen.
Well, life with Kareen is quite eventful, I would say.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. When you wear many hats, and it's not hats that you don't enjoy, you just love those hats. So it's a question of, having harmony. I talk about harmony instead of balance because sometimes, balance is not possible. It just isn't. But when you harmonize, it makes a big difference. So, for example, I like to give the example of a song or, a concert where you have different instruments. You have the voices, you have the musicians, and sometimes it's the guitar that has the solo. Sometimes, it's the piano. Sometimes it's the drums. So, but they're still together, right? So it's just one is emphasized. And so that's kind of how I see my life. So depending on what's going on, you may have more of an emphasis on one aspect than the other, but it all kind of harmonizes together and produces me.
I love that. I never heard that one harmonized, but yeah, I can go with that. I feel that one.
Yes, that's awesome.
I
Absolutely.
love it. So yeah, where did this vision come from?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, I have to say that, I fell in the soup of entrepreneurship about 20 years ago. So I started out as a professional. I was in employment counseling, which I loved. I loved what I was doing. And so to make a long story short, my husband and I, we had one child at the time and we moved to another city and no one would hire me because I was pregnant. And that's how I kind of became an entrepreneur because, I reluctantly became a stay-at-home mom, because I was pregnant with my second child. So, but I discovered this like underground world of mompreneurs, and I was like, oh yeah, this is my tribe. So that's how I kind of discovered that I had this potential in me. And I tried first different direct sales marketing companies. I personally love direct sales. It really helps to kind of understand what entrepreneurship is without so much of what comes with owning a business
Mhm.
because it's all there. So you just jump in. And the personal growth too that comes through it was amazing. So one particular one that really got me to realize who I was and my full potential was Mary Kay. So I became a sales director with Mary Kay in 3 months and a senior sales director in a year and building a team of women and just what really struck me with this business was their motto. So it's enriching women's lives, and this is kind of how I realized that, oh, there's something here. you know I have this leadership that I really didn't know I had, or the potential that it could bring. And so at the time I was pregnant with my fifth child. So after giving birth, after giving birth to the fifth one, I kind of discovered that, hey, let's combine my entrepreneurial experience with my career counseling experience and offer a service to moms, to have their kids and business too. And that's kind of how, I started creating businesses from scratch from then. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. I was like, she went from the second child to the fifth child. What happened over here?
Well, you know what? It's
That's
entrepreneurship that really,
awesome.
helped me to do that. I find that, having a 9 to 5 is great, but there's a flexibility that is really difficult when you want to raise a family a certain way. So, and I lift my hat off to women that are single moms, for example, who really, have to juggle that inflexibility that comes with having a 9 to 5 and not having a partner to help. I mean, it's just I don't know, they're my heroes, to be honest. So for me and my husband, we very quickly realized that having flexibility was very important to us because we wanted to raise our kids in our own terms. And so we made the sacrifices necessary, and it was not easy. But when we look at them now, the youngest is 16, the oldest is 22. And it's just amazing, what has, and I really believe that was those decisions that we made early on, raising them, that's brought them to be who they are today, and just being, it was all worth it, right?
Oh, that's awesome.
Mhm.
So yeah, so how do you, and how is this parentpreneur? So like, how do you help them?
Yeah, so basically, after, all the ups and downs and the experimenting and looking at, what works for me and for my family, I started kind of helping others, just be able to find what works for them. So it's not a cookie cutter thing. We kind of look at, what's the vision here, and then kind of look at solidifying the passions that are going to hold that vision, and then taking inspired action from that place in order to make sure that, we are being before we are doing, right? So sometimes we jump into things and we kind of follow a path that we was imposed on us, to be very honest, if I can be frank. A lot of the times we grew up in families, and some things that we experience kind of you know give us a trajectory that we adopt, but it might not be exactly who we are or what we know that we want to contribute to the world. And so that's part of what I do, is really helping people get back to, who they are authentically, and then sometimes re-engineering things so that what they do really reflects who they are, and the passionate being that they are. So when you're working with someone who has a family and also wants to build a successful business, then it's so important to really grasp what that vision is, because it's very easy for them to kind of get lost, in the process. And so the truth is, our children find out more about who they are and who they need to become by watching us, being who we are and who we need to become. And so it's really kind of like a dance, I like to say. And I love getting people where they know that they're meant to be. So yeah.
Nice. I love that. And we sure need it, because a lot of people don't have like the resources and tools. So
Mhm.
I love that you offer that for them. So yeah, do you work with them on a one-on-one or do you have a group setting? How is that work?
Yeah, I offer both, to be very honest. I prefer, I really love the one-on-one. I prefer it actually, because you really get to create something in partner to create something, right? So group setting is great as well because people kind of rub off on each other and learn from each other. So it's not a question of, and that's the way that I like to do the group work. It's really an experience, and people actually do the work together, as they move forward. And so there's the aspect of co-creation both in groups and in one-on-one, but I really, really enjoy the one-on-one. It's by far, the best use of my brain, I would say.
I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, I found you through Podmatch, a great community, for
that's
podcast
right.
hosts and podcast guests to share the expertise
Mhm.
and support one another. But yeah, so is there anything else like, you want your my listeners to know about you?
Yeah, so one thing that's important, and I like to strive that is um, to really get in touch with who you are, get in touch with what it is that you were meant to contribute to the world. And I like to say, when I meet people for the first time, instead of asking them, what do you do for a living or something, it's what are you passionate about? You learn more about somebody by what they're passionate about than what they do many times, until they do the work to really be before they do, and then what they do actually, really showcases who they are and that passionate being that they are. And so one of the things that I decided to do is help people to to have a framework to do that, right? Because sometimes it's like, okay, well, what does that mean? How does that materialize, right? And so I wrote a very short book. So it's called Dare to Rise: Transformational Reflections to Know Your Vision. And
Ooh,
so it's only it's very short. I think it's under 100 pages, but it's very um poignant. So there's if somebody's new to personal development, they will really get to the nitty gritty of what it takes, to get to that place of being. And if somebody's already advanced in their personal growth journey, they'll definitely get some nuggets in there. One of the things I talk about is scooping the crap, and sometimes what happens is we're in a society that is very focused on doing and very focused on activity based living. And so people don't take the time to stop and to really get in tune with what's happening inside of them. So sometimes they're living a situation or they're going through the motions, and they don't realize that there's some things internally that needs to be scooped out. So all of us have crap, that
yeah.
attaches to us, and depending on our experiences and things like that. And so being very self-aware of what those things are at every stage of life, because as they say, new level bring new devil, right? So there's always something to really unpack. And I like to talk about how crap you know um invites flies, right? And so if you leave pile of crap somewhere, flies will come. But if you scoop it out and you remove the crap, the flies won't have anywhere to land, right? And so it's very important. This is one of the many steps that I talk about in the book. And it's actually a part of a 90-day program, but
Nice.
it kind of gets you started.
Yeah, so I love that. So one of the questions that you had is like, what makes you feel inspired or like, that you're living your best life?
Yes. I love seeing people choose themselves. Like that
Ooh,
just motivates me so much
yes, girl.
because sometimes, people have this false notion that choosing yourself is selfish. No, it is not, especially when you have a heart for people. You have to make sure that you take care of yourself first. So you're able to then take care of others to, work out of your overflow, right? And so that motivates me so much. And I love to, you know, really remind people that if they don't do that, they're not only, it's not only a detriment to themselves, but also it's a detriment to the people that are around them, and that they care about, right? So we want to always be working towards that next best version of ourselves. I like to say there's always more, you know?
Yep.
So
I
yeah,
say it too, girl. Like, as long as we're breathing, I mean, there's always something that we
there's
can work
always,
on, something that we can learn from. The
absolutely.
possibilities are endless. But yeah, you say like you help out like mompreneurs, parentpreneurs. I
Yes.
love that word. But yeah, what's the biggest challenge that you have faced as a mom
Mhm.
doing all of this, and how did you overcome it?
Yes. So one of the biggest issues that I had to work on was my superwoman syndrome and my savior complex.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, that was huge because it was really early on in my entrepreneurial journey. It was really driving me to work to almost the point of death. I actually almost died one time where I was working like crazy person and um coming back home from the office one time. First of all, I fell asleep whole lot of times between the time where I was at the office till I got home. It was about 30-minute drive. And I think I fell asleep like 10 times. Like I can't even remember how many times. But I got right in front of my house and I was so happy, but I don't know what happened. I guess I blacked out. To this day, I'm not sure what happened, but I ended up crashing into the apartment of an apartment building that was right next to where I lived.
Wow.
Yeah. So at first I thought I crashed into my own apartment, but it was a vacant, thank God. To make a long story short, I came out of that with, just a few chipped teeth, some bruises on my face, and terrible whiplash. And I wished I had died, at that time, because to me, it was like the best way, for my family to be taken care of, for all that stuff. It was just an insane thinking. But that's how I realized that my soul was sick, and that I needed to really get to the bottom of it. And but I think a lot of overachievers will hear this and resonate. So even though I had this really traumatic experience and I came out alive, which was a miracle in itself, once I got better, guess what happened? I got back into the same old patterns. And I crashed again, but this time it was mentally and physically. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I need some professional help here, to really get at that. So yeah, I did. I went to a psychologist, and followed a program and to get at the root of it, because that's what happens sometimes, especially in our community. It's very taboo, and it's seen as weakness if you go and do all this work, and let me tell you, it literally saved my life. And really, I realized that going through that, it's not just for me that I went through all of that, it's also to help others. And that's how I decided to kind of shift a little bit and get into the mental health space, and the personal development space. So I went back to school after 15 years of quitting, finished my degree in psychology, and I did a minor in neuroscience and mental health. And then after that, I decided to start helping people and really make sure that they don't fall into the same traps, that I have. And so, yeah.
Wow. That's crazy, but I can totally relate, you know?
Mm,
Like sometimes you need the actual crash,
yeah.
to bring you awareness of something. And then if you don't follow through, you got
Yep.
your mental health, as well. So, wow. What are some strategies and approaches that people can use to manage their mental health?
Yeah. So really simple things, um, like spending time with yourself, not watching, Netflix.
Oh,
Okay, this is not what I'm talking about.
no.
I'm talking about being in tune, with what's really going on. And one a very simple tool is journaling. That's a very simple tool that is very powerful. And
Yes. I love journaling, girl.
yeah, and some people, that's not for them, and that's fine. Sometimes I recommend putting a chair in front of you and just talking, you know. Uh, so getting it all out is really what it's important, right? And so sometimes for example, if you realize that you have anger and it stems from a particular situation that happened way back when, and maybe this person is already passed away, for example, and you don't have access to this person, what do you do? Right? So one way is to put a chair in front of you and just talk, and, and just allow yourself to, address this person, even if they're not physically there. But the exercise is getting it out, not letting it fester, because this is where the issues that we face really lie, right? And so learning to live, your life from the inside out is really one of the best ways that you can protect your mental health. Another really great tip that I talk about is the mental health continuum. So if you've never heard of it, simply Google Google mental health continuum. There will be lots of different diagrams that you will find. So basically, what it is making you understand that mental health is not mental illness, right? So a lot of the times people put it all together. No, like a good mental health is really about being able to be in tune with your emotions, your feelings, being able to function well in society, having well-being, that actually makes you productive, right? And so it's a continuum. So we're not always happy-go-lucky, and sometimes we can experience times of sadness and grief and anger and hurt and all those things. The key is that You don't want those things to become negative reinforcers in your life. So with the mental health continuum, it helps you to kind of keep yourself in check, right? So you have the one end where you're healthy, for example, one sign of being healthy is, having normal fluctuating emotions. That is a sign of being healthy mentally. Okay. And then, the next phase is more reacting. Okay, so in this phase, it's more sort of like you may have trouble sleeping because you keep ruminating certain things. That could be a sign that you're reacting, or sometimes you may have react a certain way to a situation that is not proportional to what's going on. The next phase is then is being um, so injured. Okay, so in this phase, you're usually like avoiding people. You avoid social settings. You kind of have a lingering sense of sadness. Those are some signs of being injured. And then the next phase is illness, right? So here, we're talking about being completely incapacitated. We're talking about not being able to function, right? So those are sort of, so when you Google the mental health continuum, you'll be able to not only get some signs to watch for, because I can't really get more into it here, but you can also get a few things that you can do to make sure that you stay on the mental health, the good mental health side of the continuum.
Yeah, no, I love it. As I say in my intro, one of my topics is like just mental health in general, because I think it's so important and
Yes.
people don't talk about it enough. And we need to end that stigma, so bad about it. And then journaling is like one of the things that I do. And then with having a mentor,
Mhm.
uh the way you explain it, like you have to go to the root of the problem. Like
Yes.
sometimes we have to reparent ourselves,
Mhm.
so that work through that inner child. I don't know for you, but for me, is the 9-year old. Like
Mm.
she's so angry that she has to be a grown up, that I
Yes.
have to go back and be like, hey, I'm sorry for what happened to you, like, but can we not like act like a crazy woman right now? But
Yes.
it's just reparenting yourself and giving yourself what you were lacking in some way or another, I have,
Absolutely.
I say, the almost perfect mom, but there was some things, that's why I say that almost perfect, that is
Yes.
in caps, that separates her from being perfect.
Mhm.
But there was some things that I have to go back and be like, hey, little Francie, like it's okay that
Yeah.
this and that happened. So, and one way that I do that too is like letters. You say it
Mhm.
to like, my mentor will have you talk to a pillow. You say to talk to a chair,
Yeah.
and I say to write a letter. So, but
Yes.
just the main point is getting those feelings out,
Out.
because it will
Absolutely.
eat you alive.
Yes, it will. Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, one thing that I found was, and and what I did was I chose to kind of focus on personality. So, one of my expertise is a specific model of human behavior. It's called DISC. And so what I find is that when people understand themselves and have a real good understanding of how their personality works and their personality style, then they can find something that, works for their personality. So sometimes there are things that will work for me that may not work for you, if you're more introverted, if you're more extroverted and things like that, or if you're more task oriented, or if you're more oriented towards people. So those things, it's important to be aware of those things so that you're not implementing a strategy that doesn't fit with you, right? And also it's also good to kind of experiment with different things and see what sticks.
Yep, I've been trying things, girl, for like the past 6, 7 years. And I say, if you tell me scratch your head 3 times a day and that will work, I will be scratching my head 3 times a day because I will try anything and everything to like feel, I don't know if sanity is even a possibility, but just, to feel okay, to feel at peace,
Yes,
harmony, like I
yes,
love that.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's the key thing because, as you said, we're going to go through things. It's not like we're not going to go through them, right? So sometimes, when I work with a client that, their goal is not to feel sad anymore, or their goal is, not to feel pain anymore and things like that. And I say to them, that's not the goal because, we live in the fallen world. Like there's going to be stuff that happens. So the idea is to become resilient enough so that when those things happen or whatever, you're able to handle it. You're able to take it in a way that's not going to destroy you, but that's going to make you stronger, right? And so the more, it's kind of like when you build a muscle, right? Like we know, when it comes to physically, when we go to the gym, we don't see the results right away. But if we're consistent and we keep working on that machine, next thing you know, like, wow, the transformation that's going to happen is going to be amazing. So it's the same way when it comes to, our mental toughness, our mindset, our self-awareness, all of those things that are really essential to living your best life, right? So the idea is that you don't want again to live the life of someone else. I talk about plagiarism, when we do that. So a lot
Yep.
of us do a lot of plagiarism and then we wonder, how come I'm not happy? How come it's not working? Well, you need to kind of, sometimes, roll back and kind of focus on, okay, where did things kind of shift, and what do I need to do to make sure that I get back to my authentic self, and then protect that self in the way that I harmonize my life.
I love that. So, how do you define success, and what is the key ingredient to your success?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for me, success is really a question of that harmonized life that I'm building is actually bringing the results and the fruits, that I want to see. Which for me, the most important thing is peace and happiness, joy, which is even better than happiness, to be honest,
Yep.
and to have the life that was meant to be mine. That for me, that's what success is. So there's no comparison there because you're actually living that best life, that you are the one who decide that this is what it should look like, not what other people say it should look like, right? But it takes a while to get there. But once you get there, it's really amazing. So yeah, this is, and I can say that, after many years of kind of trial and error, I can say that I'm there now, so I may not have everything I want to have or that I know I'm going to have, but it's really more about appreciating and being grateful for where I am now, and knowing that as I move forward and as I'm consistent, I will get to where I know I need to be. But I'm not living for the future, right? I'm living for the now. And every day is, a gift. Every day is a present, right? That I kind of, uncover as I go along.
Ooh, I love that. But girl, being present at the present moment, it is not easy
No,
and it
it's
takes
not.
a lot of training.
Yeah.
Man, it takes a lot of training. I'm just learning to how to be present. And it's like, oh my God, this is exhausting.
Well, especially, with people that have the similar person, I can tell that we have a similar personality. And so, there's this thing about the shiny object syndrome that we
Oh
have to be
yeah,
very careful about,
that's me.
Yeah, exactly. But the more when you know it, and the more that you remind yourself that, what I want is to be present. So I'm not going to chase that rabbit. It can go. And whenever I'm done with what I'm doing, that rabbit will be there if it's meant for me. Right.
I
So
love
that's it.
that. So yeah, so where can my listeners find you?
Yeah, so very simple, kareenaristide.ca. You'll have all the different ways to contact me, whether it's social media or any, if you want to have a little conversation, you can do a coffee chat with me. Yeah, so looking forward to seeing and connecting with anybody who's interested in doing so.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really had a
You're
great time talking to
welcome.
you.
Me too. Thank you for this platform. It's great. And you did a good job. I love it.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
You're
And so,
welcome.
yeah, so I will have your information in the show notes. But as well, if you want to get a hold of her, you can do it through Podmatch. Check that community out. Once again,
Yeah.
is for podcast hosts to just share about their show and find podcast guests to share the expertise. So it's like dating, but
Yes,
for podcast hosts and podcast guests. So I love
that's
that
right.
community, and they share a lot of resources and tools.
Yes.
And but yeah, so hope you enjoyed this episode. I really love having this talk with Miss Kareen. And yeah, you can find my podcast in all major platforms as well as my YouTube channel. So hope you have a blessed day.
Bye bye. Bless.